The small Earth fleet drifted silently through the darkness of space. Dae-Hyun watched the stars through the viewport of his command ship, the UES Thunderbolt. His mind was heavy with thoughts of the upcoming battle. 3 days had passed since the emergency meeting with the Confederation Council. "Captain, we're approaching the rendezvous point," said Lieutenant Jun, his voice steady despite the tension. Dae-Hyun nodded. "Show me the Confederation forces." The holographic display flickered to life, showing the elegant curves of alien warships. They looked like art pieces compared to the blocky, practical design of human vessels. The Confederation had sent 12 capital ships, impressive weapons that had proven useless against the Mikari's new shields. "Any word from Captain Hyunji?" Dae-Hyun asked. "She's leading the second battle group. They'll arrive in 6 hours." A communication alert chimed. The face of Commander Suk, the Vraxian fleet commander, appeared on screen. His multiple eyes narrowed in what humans had learned was an expression of contempt. "Commander Kim," Suk said coldly, "my officers have placed your survival time at less than 20 minutes once battle begins. I've been more generous. I give you 30. Dae-Hyun smiled politely. "Thank you for your confidence, Commander. We'll try not to disappoint." After the communication ended, Lieutenant Jun approached. "Sir, they're still treating us like children even after Captain Hyunji's diplomatic efforts." "Good," Dae-Hyun replied. "Underestimation is our greatest advantage." The human fleet consisted of only 6 ships, small by Confederation standards. What the aliens didn't know was that each vessel carried weapons designed specifically to counter the Mikari shields. Earth scientists had studied the battle footage. The Mikari shields stopped energy weapons completely, but they had never been tested against kinetic projectiles. Humans had been killing each other with physical objects for thousands of years. They were experts at it. "Sir, the Mikari fleet has been spotted," reported the sensor officer. 5 minutes until they reach Outpost Sierra." Dae-Hyun took a deep breath. "Begin Operation Spear Thrust. All ships, prepare main railguns and deploy missile pods." The human ships moved into formation. Unlike the beautiful but predictable patterns of Confederation vessels, they spread out in what seemed like chaos. Commander Suk's voice came through again. "What are you doing? Follow standard attack protocols, or you'll be destroyed instantly." "With respect, Commander, we'll fight our way," Dae-Hyun replied calmly. The Mikari ships appeared, massive black vessels that seemed to absorb the starlight around them. The Confederation fleet opened fire immediately, their energy weapons splashing harmlessly against the enemy shields. "All ships, hold position," Dae-Hyun ordered. "Wait for my mark." The bridge crew watched tensely as the Confederation ships took heavy damage. Several smaller vessels exploded as the Mikari returned fire. "Sir, Commander Suk is demanding we engage," said the communications officer. Dae-Hyun ignored this. He watched the Mikari ships carefully, noting how they moved, how their shields flickered when hit. "Now," he commanded, "all ships execute firing pattern Alpha." The human vessels fired simultaneously. Instead of energy beams, they launched solid tungsten rods, accelerated to near light speed. The projectiles hit the Mikari shields and passed straight through, tearing into the hulls beneath. The enemy ships faltered. Their shields, designed to disperse energy, had no defense against physical objects moving at relativistic speeds. "Second volley," Dae-Hyun ordered. The human ships fired, again targeting the weak points they'd identified. 3 Mikari vessels exploded in brilliant flashes. On the communication screen, Commander Suk's eyes were wide with shock. "What? How are you doing this?" "Sometimes the old ways work best," Dae-Hyun replied. "All ships, launch EMP missiles, now." The missiles detonated near the remaining Mikari ships, disrupting their systems. Without shields, they were defenseless. Within 30 minutes, the battle was over. The Mikari fleet that had terrorized the Confederation for months was destroyed or retreating. Commander Suk's face appeared again on screen. His expression had changed completely. "Commander Kim," he said slowly, "it seems we have much to learn. From Earth, after all." Dae-Hyun nodded. "Perhaps next time you'll think twice before betting against us." As the human fleet regrouped, Dae-Hyun looked at the stars again. He knew that after today, the Confederation would never look at humans the same way. They had come seeking allies and found warriors instead. Lieutenant Minji Song's hands gripped the control panel of her stealth frigate, the UES Shadow. From her hidden position, she watched the massive battle unfold around Nexus Station. The space station hung in the darkness like a giant metal flower, its lights flickering as power systems failed under the Makari attack. "Status report," Minji ordered, her voice calm despite the chaos visible through the view screen. "Confederation defenses are failing," reported Ensign Jin. "Their energy weapons can't penetrate the Makari shields. Station integrity at 42% and falling." On the tactical display, Minji could see the elegant Confederation ships firing their beautiful but useless energy weapons. The beams of light simply dissolved against the dark, rippling shields of the Makari vessels. "How long until Captain Hyunji arrives with the main fleet?" she asked. 3 minutes, Jin answered. But the station might not last that long. Minji's stealth frigate was one of 5 human ships already in position around Nexus Station. They had arrived early, cloaked and silent, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. "All stealth units, report readiness," Minji said into her comm. 4 green. Lights appeared on her display as the other captains confirmed their status. "Weapons hot. Kinetic rods loaded and locked," reported her weapons officer. The Makari had surrounded the station with 30 warships. After their defeat at the hands of Commander Daehyun's fleet, they had returned with greater numbers. They believed that victory had been a fluke. A massive explosion rocked the station as one of its defensive platforms collapsed. "We can't wait any longer," Minji decided. "Connect me to Captain Hyunji." The captain's face appeared on screen, her expression serious as she commanded the main human fleet still approaching the battle. "Lieutenant Song, report. Station defenses failing rapidly, Captain. Request permission to engage ahead of schedule, Captain." Hyunji nodded. "Permission granted. Begin Operation Thunderstrike. Main fleet will arrive to support in 3 minutes." Minji turned to her crew. "You heard the captain. Disable cloaking systems on my mark. Target main Makari command vessels first." The crew tensed with anticipation. These were the moments before the storm. 3, 2, 1. Mark. 5 human stealth frigates suddenly appeared in the midst of the Makari fleet. The enemy ships didn't have time to react before the first volley launched. "Fire kinetic rods," Minji ordered. From the shadow, 6 tungsten rods shot forward, accelerating to near light speed. They struck the nearest Makari battleship, punching through its shields as if they weren't there and tearing through the hull. Across the battlefield, the other human ships fired similar weapons. 10 Makari ships were hit in the first attack, their shields useless against physical projectiles moving at relativistic speeds. "Second volley. EMP warheads," Minji commanded. The EMPs detonated near the damaged ships, flooding their systems with energy that overloaded their circuits. Ships began to drift, their power cores shutting down. The Makari fleet broke formation, confused by the sudden appearance of enemies in their midst. They tried to turn their weapons on the human vessels, but the small frigates were too quick. "Incoming!" shouted Ensign Jin as a Makari cruiser fired at them. Minji spun the shadow in a tight roll, avoiding the energy beam. "Fire micronukes, pattern Delta." Small nuclear devices, precisely calibrated to create shockwaves in space without radiation damage, detonated around 3 Makari dreadnoughts. The shockwaves battered the ships against each other, cracking their hulls. The main human fleet arrived, led by Captain Hyunji's flagship. 20 more human vessels joined the battle, their weapons already firing. "All units execute full attack pattern," came Hyunji's voice over the comm. The human ships moved in perfect coordination, targeting weak points that Minji's stealth team had identified. More kinetic weapons tore through Makari shields. EMP bursts disabled their targeting systems. Tactical nukes created chaos in their formations. Within 15 minutes, half the Makari fleet was destroyed or disabled. The rest began to retreat. From the Confederation command ship, Admiral Suk watched in stunned silence. Just days ago, he had mocked these humans and their primitive technology. "How is this possible?" he asked over the open channel. Minji heard. Captain Hyunji's reply, "Your people developed weapons as your technology advanced. We developed weapons specifically to kill. That's the difference you failed to understand." As the last Makari ships jumped away, Minji looked at the saved station. The Confederation officers were staring at the human fleet with new eyes, not with mockery, but with fear and respect. The Grand Council chamber of the Galactic Confederation buzzed with tension. The room was circular, with high ceilings and walls that seemed to glow with soft blue light. At the center stood Captain Hyunji Park, alone before the semicircle of alien representatives. Supreme Counselor Yunji sat at the center of the raised platform. Her normally composed features showed signs of stress as she stared down at the human captain. "The Council has called this emergency meeting to address a matter of grave concern," Yunji announced, her voice echoing through the chamber. "The human weapons used at Nexus Station have raised questions." Dae-hyun stood at the back of the chamber, watching his captain face the Council. He noticed how the various alien species whispered among themselves, their earlier mockery replaced by wary glances. "Captain Park," Yunji continued, "did Earth deliberately hide the true nature of your military capabilities?" Hyunji stood straight in her crisp uniform. "No, Counselor. We provided the information you requested about our standard armaments. Yet you failed to mention weapons that could destroy an entire Mikari battle fleet," said Taiho, the Vraxian representative who had once laughed at human technology. His multiple eyes no longer showed amusement. "You didn't ask about our specialized weapons," Yunji replied simply. Murmurs spread through the chamber. A tall, thin alien with pale skin stood up. "These weapons obliterated ships that our best technology couldn't even damage. How is this possible?" Hyunji looked around the room. "Humans developed weapons differently than your species did. You all created weapons as your technology naturally advanced. We created technology specifically to make better weapons." The chamber fell silent. "Our history spans thousands of years," Hyunji continued. "Most of that time, we fought each other. We became very good at finding ways to kill." "And these tungsten rods that move at near light speed?" asked another counselor. "Kinetic kill vehicles," Hyunji explained. "A simple concept. No energy beams, no complex targeting systems that can be jammed. Just pure physics, mass times velocity." Dae-hyun watched as the aliens shifted uncomfortably in their seats. "And the nuclear devices?" Yunji asked, her voice barely hiding her horror. "Precisely controlled fusion reactions," Hyunji said. "We've had that technology for centuries." Taiho leaned forward. "What else haven't you told us, human?" Hyunji hesitated. "There are other weapons we chose not to bring to this alliance. Weapons we hope never to use again." "What kind of weapons?" Yunji demanded. "Planet killers," Hyunji said quietly. "Biological agents, nanomachine swarms. Technologies we developed during our darkest times." The council chamber erupted in shocked voices. "Silence!" Yunji ordered. When quiet returned, she fixed Hyunji with a hard stare. "You bring these dangerous capabilities into our midst and expect us to trust you?" "That's exactly why we value peace so highly," Hyunji replied. "We know what war really costs. We've paid that price many times." Dae-hyun stepped forward from the back of the room. "If I may speak, Supreme Counselor," Yunji nodded reluctantly. "The Mikari would have destroyed Nexus Station without our help," Dae-hyun said. "You called us primitive. You laughed at our weapons. But when you needed us, we came." The council members looked at each other uncomfortably. "We don't want to use these weapons," Hyunji added. "That's why we came here seeking peaceful alliance, not conquest." Yunji was silent for a long moment. Finally, she spoke. "This council must reconsider Earth's position in the Confederation. You are both our greatest allies, and potentially our greatest threat." As the meeting ended, Dae-hyun joined Hyunji as they walked back to their ship. "They're afraid of us now," he said quietly. Hyunji nodded. "Fear can be useful if it leads to respect. And if it leads to them deciding we're too dangerous to keep around." She stopped walking and looked at him. "Then we'll remind them that we saved them when they couldn't save themselves, and that humans make better friends than enemies." The grand hall of the Earth Embassy shimmered with light, reflecting off polished marble floors. Admiral Hyunji Park stood by the vast observation window, watching the bustling activity on Confederation Prime below. The city spread out like a jeweled tapestry, buildings of crystal and metal reaching toward the pink-tinged sky. 3 years had passed since the Battle of Nexus Station. 3 years since humans had shown the galaxy the true nature of their weapons and their character. Hyunji's new admiral uniform felt stiff against her shoulders. At 42, she had become the youngest admiral in Earth's history, promoted after the Makari campaigns. Now she represented humanity at the most important peace treaty in Confederation history. "Quite a view, isn't it?" said a familiar voice behind her. Hyunji turned to see Commander Dae-hyun, now sporting the insignia of a fleet captain. "Better than the view from a bridge during battle," she replied. Dae-hyun smiled. "I just saw the Makari delegation arrive. They look nervous." "They should be," Hyunji said. "Hey, it's not every day you sign away your empire's expansion rights. The Comprehensive Peace Accord would end decades of Makari aggression. After their defeats by human weapons, the once proud empire had requested peace talks. Now, 17 species would gather to sign the treaty that would reshape galactic politics. The ceremony starts in 20 minutes, Dae-hyun reminded her. "The Supreme Counselor asked to speak with you first?" Hyunji nodded and made her way through the crowded hall. Alien diplomats parted to let her pass, their expressions a mix of respect and caution. She noticed how they no longer looked down on humans. No one called them primitive anymore. In a private room off the main hall, Supreme Counselor Hyunji waited. The tall, elegant alien had become an unexpected ally after the initial fear had faded. "Admiral Park," Hyunji greeted her warmly. "This day would not be possible without Earth's contribution." "The Confederation fought bravely," Hyunji replied diplomatically. "But it was human weapons that turned the tide," Hyunji said. "The Council has been discussing an expansion of Earth's role in Confederation defense planning." Hyunji raised an eyebrow. "That's a change from 3 years ago, when half the Council wanted to expel us." Hyunji's skin flushed slightly. Perspectives evolve. Fear gives way to understanding. As they spoke, Ambassador Taiho entered the room. The Vraxian diplomat had once been humanity's harshest critic. Now he approached with a respectful bow. "Admiral Park," he said, his multiple eyes fixed on her face. "A moment of your time." Hyunji excused herself, leaving them alone. "The peace ceremony begins soon," Taiho said, his voice softer than Hyunji remembered. "I wanted to speak with you before the formalities begin." "Of course, Ambassador." Taiho seemed to struggle with his words. "The Alliance almost didn't accept humans into our fold," he admitted finally. "We thought you too primitive, too violent." Hyunji remained silent, letting him continue. "And now?" Taiho asked himself, answering his own question. "Now we understand that your species' greatest strength isn't your weapons, but what your weapons taught you, that peace must be protected, sometimes with terrible force." "Our history is filled with war," Hyunji replied, "which is precisely why we value harmony. We don't glorify our weapons. We simply ensure they work when diplomacy fails." Taiho nodded slowly. "My species has begun studying Earth's history. It's fascinating how such a violent past created beings capable of such compassion." The call came for all representatives to gather for the signing ceremony. As they walked together, Hyunji noticed Lieutenant Minji Song, now a captain herself, standing with a group of young officers. "The next generation," Dae-hyun said, following her gaze. "They never had to prove themselves the way we did." "Good," Hyunji replied. "Let them build rather than destroy." As the ceremony began, Hyunji watched representatives from across the galaxy gather around the treaty table. Once they had mocked human weapons as toys. Now they stood as equals, perhaps even as friends. The stars glittered through the vast window behind the assembly, reminding Hyunji of that first diplomatic meeting years ago. Humanity had found its place among those stars at last, respected not just for their skill in war, but for their deeper understanding of why peace mattered.